Terve! It's a new year, which means new opportunities to praise the Lord and spread the good news. So, for my first video of the year, I decided that it's time for me to work on a well-overdue project of mine that I've named Border Train. Since I want to make this into a game, a good place to start seems like making a demo version so that you can get an idea of what Border Train is about, and maybe even offer feedback so that the proper game can be really good. If or once I get around to making it, God willing. Now, the only problem is that I don't know how to code. So naturally, the thought of making a game has felt difficult and daunting. So, to give myself a little push, I'm going to make it in a week. Oh, I should also mention that I'm going to be coding it in Scratch. I should explain the concept of this game to you so that you can understand what I'm doing in this video. In Border Train, you begin work as the manager of a small border town train station. However, the job is not what you expected, as on the first day a virus breaks out in a neighboring country, causing excessive traffic to the station. Not helping your situation is that spies and other bad actors are using this disaster as an opportunity to infiltrate the country. Basically, as the days and trains go by, you just have to make sure that you don't run out of employees, resources, or money. As you may have noticed, this is a demo version. Since it's my first time making a game, I figured that I'd make something simple at first. So the game is missing a lot of core features that I want to add into the full version. Namely, the ability to talk to staff in a visual novel-like format, and mini-games like where you would get to play as one of the nurses or one of the border guards, or even a train mechanic. I've also planned on there being a lot of different endings depending on how you play the game. Everything that you do, meaning how you interact with the staff, how you manage the station, would affect what ending you get. But I have so little experience making games that making this game felt like throwing darts in a dark room. I had the basic idea of what I had to do, but since I had never done it before, it was not so easy to figure it all out. Anyway, what did I actually accomplish during day 1? Well, I decided that the easiest place to start would be to design and draw the visuals for the game. This way I can think about how I actually want the game to function without having to worry about the coding yet. Here's the main view of the game, so a bird's eye view of the station. The next day, I started by designing the shop menu for the sanatorium. This is where you keep track of the nurses and medical equipment. As a stylistic choice, I made it to resemble a silver platter with some medicine and a syringe. I also used a site called Sketchfab to take a screenshot of this train 3D model and then drew over and colored it to match the style of the game. I don't typically like to use 3D models or any type of tracing for that matter in my art, but since the point of this project was to finish it in a week, I saw that this would be a good way to save some time and energy. For the actual game, I'm going to research trains more and design one from scratch. You can find the 3D models that I used in this video from the description. And I'm sorry to disappoint my autistic audience, but there is not that much train action in the demo version. I know, it's a tragedy, but what can you do with so little experience making games? On day 3, I took care of designing the shop menu for the train station. Here, you will manage the border guards and general resources of the station. I made it to resemble a notification board with some intentional details. Weirdly enough, on the same day, I decided that the game needs another location for the player to visit. So I designed the office and some storyboards for a cutscene. I was wondering if I should include the cutscene, but I really felt like the game would be missing too much if I didn't include it, so I did. These plants are really bad because I just doodled them in my notebook, so let's quickly move on to... On day 4, I further developed my idea for the office as well as the cutscene by creating more detailed storyboards. Oh, and I also created the line art for all of those. I also couldn't get sleep that night because by day 4 I was becoming worried about the coding, so I watched Scratch tutorials until 2 in the morning, then went to sleep. When I woke up on day 5, I had soaked up all the information from those Scratch tutorials and started planning how I would code my game in more detail now that I had a better idea of what Scratch was capable of. I also colored the office and part of the cutscene, but I finished those later. In the evening, I also coded a small part of the game to start. On day 6, the last day was nearing. I started the day by again using some 3D models from Sketchfab to add some much needed details to the office. I knew that I wanted the office to have this specific lamp. I feel like I see it everywhere, and I don't know why, but I do like it. So there you go. I also attempted to make a miniature version of the train in this glass cabinet, but it was barely visible in the end. Now that I look at it, I probably didn't need to use a 3D model for those, since they are fairly simple items. But I think by day 6 my brain was starting to be a little tired. I got to also coloring the rest of the cutscene, and in the evening I managed to do most of the coding. On day 7, I fixed these placeholder buttons that I created inside of Scratch with custom ones. I also finished mostly coding the office and its functions, namely the mail system. By the last day, I had accomplished so much, and coding in Scratch was very simple, which helped out a lot. However, I felt like something was missing, something very important. I mean, the game worked exactly as intended. Mostly. But it was missing that busy and interesting feeling that I wanted it to have. So this may sound crazy to do on the last day, but I added, coded, and animated a completely new character that would appear occasionally. I call him the Money Bird. Well, he tells me that his name is Carl, so let's call him Carl. This little bird will show up occasionally with a basket full of shiny marks. However, you may see that he looks a little bit unfinished. That's because he is. Yeah, I had to go on for one extra day to finish Carl's design and to animate him. But that will have to wait a little while because I need to be honest with you about something. By the end of the week, I was exhausted. You see, creative work is kind of like physical labor for the brain. It can be just as tiresome, especially when it comes to a project as intensive as creating a full game demo in a week with full art and all. I suffered from a really bad headache, so going forward, I will definitely give myself more time to work on a project like this. I really felt the limitations and mortality of my earthly body. But luckily, this video is sponsored by Jesus Christ. That's right, for the low price of free, you can be born again unto everlasting life by putting your belief in the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus the Nazarene. This is the free gift of God. No returns accepted. Thank you for listening, and now let's go back to your regular programming. Well, I did manage to finish most of the game within the week. For now, I'll tell you that on the extra day, I cleaned up the code to the best of my ability. I will try to explain what the code does soon. I think that I did a pretty good job for the first time. I also finished Carl's design and animation. I drew the head, wings, body and basket on separate layers to make the animation process quick. The wings are hand-drawn, but the rest I just moved back and forth to create the illusion of motion. Welcome to animation. Then I made him blue to contrast the golden basket of coins and to stand out on the background. And if you ever wondered how you can make something seem like it's glowing like this money basket, what you need to do is actually just make the surroundings darker. Hence why I added the darker shading to the basket. The contrast makes an illusion of brightness. So, here is what the game looked like after the week. Yeah, it still needed some polishing. The loading screen was still a placeholder and the newspapers were empty. Not to mention that start menu. After a good few days of rest, it was time to finish what I had started. With the help of my sister in Christ, Inkkey Creations, we managed to make 8 unique newspapers. Inkkey wrote the articles, so please go to her channel after this video to show some appreciation. She's also working on some cool stuff currently. There is an order for how the article should be shown, but since I couldn't figure it out, I just made them random. I also made this fancy menu screen and used the same altered image to make a loading screen. It's definitely not my best work, but it will be fine for the demo. The sound effects and music were also added later. However, I will say that I did release this game on Scratch about a week before this video goes out, so the final version that I show in this video may be a little bit different from what you see on the site if I've managed to add some of the feedback that I've gotten so far. But before the final showcase, I was supposed to talk about the code, right? Please remember that I'm a beginner and this is not a tutorial. So I will start with the backdrops. So when you click the green flag, the backdrop switches to menu, and the menu music also starts playing. At the same time, when you press the green flag, the start game and start cutscene buttons appear. The start game button will start the game as is with the loading screen, but if you press start cutscene, it will first play the cutscene and after that it will play the game. Also, when the start game button is pressed, the menu music will stop playing. The menu music is also the same for the cutscene, but when the game starts, it will stop playing and a different song will start playing. I was trying to find a song that has a similar feeling as Lavender Town from Pokemon because I want piano music that is slightly unsettling, but also not too unsettling. Although I do think Lavender Town may be very unsettling to Gen Zs and Millennials, but oh well. But yeah, you get the idea. When the game starts, this is the screen that shows up, and here, in the backdrops, this is what the backdrop of the station looks like. So these buildings are separate on top of that. I made it like this, so that if you press on the buildings, something will happen. So if we press on the sanatorium, this menu will show up where you can buy the nurses and medical equipment. Then you can click X, and on the other side is the station where you can buy border guards and general resources, and also an enhanced spying rate button, the same as on the other side. Then if we click go to office, here is the office. So you can hear there was a little sound effect for when you sit down in the office, and then you can also see the lamp kind of goes like that because the electricity is not so good. When you are in the station, every time that there is a new day, you will receive mail. So this is the code that I came up with for that. When I receive new day, it will wait 5 seconds. I added this here so that the game doesn't get overwhelmed by all the different things that happen when the new day is broadcasted, because there are a lot of things that happen. And I think the game was getting a little confused at some point, so I made it so that these things happen on separate times. After the 5 seconds is passed, the mail time variable will be set to a random number from 1 to 3. And mail time means when the mail arrives, so there are 3 different options. If the mail time is 1 when it picks randomly, then the game will wait 15 seconds, then broadcast mail. And the same for these other ones, except they just have different times. So what happens when mail is broadcasted? On the mail sprite itself, it will set you've got mail to true. And when mail is received, if the backdrop number is 2, which is the office, so if you are in the office, then it will show and otherwise hide. So if you are in the station, for example, and you receive mail, it will not show up until you go to the office. Then there is this notification that I will show here. That will show up when you receive mail. I set it so that it will forever check if you've got mail equals true. And when it checks if you've got mail is true, then it will show if it's true, and if it's false, it will hide. Oh, and also when the mail sprite is clicked, it will broadcast open mail and set you've got mail to false. So when you click on the mail, it broadcasts open mail. When the newspaper sprite receives open mail, then it will set a mail number to something random from 1 to 8. And these are all the different articles that you can see. There's 8 of them, and they are supposed to be in an order, but I couldn't figure out how to do that, so they are random. Although if you want, you could just look at all of them here, and here they are in order. And here you can also read all of them properly, because some of them get kind of covered up by the UI. And when the newspaper is clicked, so when this sprite is clicked, it will broadcast news down and hide. But it only needs to hide, so why does it broadcast news down? Well, it's because you also have this that I will show for a little bit, the teacup. So, when the teacup also receives news down, it will also hide at the same time as the newspaper, despite being different sprites. Then I want to talk a little bit about the stats sprite, because this has a lot of stuff in here. So, when the green flag is clicked, the stats will hide, because in the menu you can see we don't need stats yet. And then when you play the game, that's when they show up. So that happens when the start game broadcast is received. You can also see these, which there's a lot of variables here, and these are the raises that you get if you play 10 days. And these go up to day 100, so if you get to day 100, then you stop getting raises after that. Although I don't know who would play for that long. So all of these were probably kind of unnecessary, but I mean, if someone wants to play it for up to 100 days, then you can. Or I mean, I guess you could play it like over that, but I've only played it for 20 days, but I'm pretty sure all of these work anyway. So speaking of the days, I put the code for the days also in the stats sprite, because obviously the stats display the days and marks, so everything related to these is in this sprite. So when this sprite receives start game, the day is set to 1, because obviously it can't be day 0, After the day is set to 1, it will start a forever block which waits 60 seconds, so 1 minute, and then it will change day by 1. And the difference between the set day and change day is that this will set the number to this and this will change. So if I change the day by 1, then this day here will become 2. But if this was a set, then it would just set the day to 1. So change will either add or subtract, and set will just straight up set it to whatever number you want to set it. This is also where we get the new day broadcast. And I also added a reset timer here, but you can't really see the timer in the game, so that was only really added to, when I was testing it. And here, when I receive start game, these variables, which are these orange blocks here. By the way, I really wish that I could make these look better, but I don't think there's any way to make the variables match the style of the game, so they're just orange. But the reason why it says 4 seconds is actually because when we start the game, the loading screen appears for 4 seconds, and then they appear after that. And I think now would be a good time to mention about the losing screens. So if we go to backdrops, here are the 3 different losing screens that I made. So the first one is the resources run out, and the other one is the infection has spread. This is spies were discovered. So spies happens if you don't have enough border cards, infection happens if you don't have enough nurses, and resources run out if you run out of either one of medical equipment or the general resources. And then I've added these when I receive game over, which means that you ran out of resources, but I named it game over in the beginning because I was planning for this one to be the only one. Then there's infected and spies, and all of these do the same thing. They hide all of these sprites and hide all of the variables. Then I've got the code for the marks. So here, when this sprite receives start game, the marks will be set to 500. And this is where things get a little bit complicated, because I want the money to raise every time that you get your salary. But there are also the raises, so you are supposed to get depending on if you have a raise or not. So then about the raises, this is how I actually did the raise system, because we've got these variables here that say raise day 10 true. So the way that I made it either true or false is that, like you saw in the beginning, all of these are set to false by the start of the game. The staff count, by the way, means the border guards, but I wasn't sure what to call them when I started coding, so that's why it says staff. I actually just fixed that up because I saw that it was a very convoluted way to do this simple thing, so I fixed it up. That's what happens when you learn. You're able to see this stuff more clearly. But anyway, so the race happens like this. When this sprite receives a new day, it will check all of these. And let's take the first one, for example. So if the day variable equals 10, then it will set race day 10 to true and broadcast race day 10. So that is what this will receive. When I receive new day, it will check if race day 10 is true, then change marks by 150, else change marks by 100. So if you don't have the race, then it will change by 100. If you do, then it will change by 150. And then at the end here is this if command, which says if race day 20 is true, then stop this script. All of these will stop, and it will switch to this one, which says if race day 20 is true, then change marks by 200, else change marks by 150. And it's the same for all of these, and it goes up to 100 like I said. So the next thing that I could tell you about is loading screen. So here it loads and then it fades out and you can see the game starts. So the reason why I added the loading screen is because there was some issues with how the things were loading, because for example I have these canopy that are kind of above the buildings, and they used to not go on top of the buildings, so the buildings would go on top of these, and yeah, it looked really weird when it was loading. So that is why the loading screen exists. It will cover up those kind of mistakes that happen while it's still loading. And the way that I did this is very simple. I just did it so that when the green flag is clicked and it's in the menu, it will just hide like everything else that's not supposed to be in the menu, and it will actually set the ghost effect to 0. And then when the loading screen receives start game, it will show, go to the front layer, wait 10 seconds, and then repeat 10 times, change ghost effect by 10. So this is what makes the fading appear, because what the ghost effect does is it affects the transparency of the sprite. So if the ghost effect is 0, then it's fully visible, and if it's 100, it is not visible. So if I do repeat change the ghost effect by 10, this is the same thing that I was talking about with the variables. So there's set and change. Set sets it and change adds or subtracts. And in this case I want to add, because I want to make the ghost effect 100 so that it would fade away. And that's why there's repeat 10. So if I repeat ghost effect by 10 times, that equals 100. That equals 100, and so the ghost effect is 100 by the end of this command, and then I also made it hide for good measure. Oh, and I will also say that I noticed if you, for example, change the ghost effect by, let's say, 20, and you repeat it 5 times, this will still equal 100 because 5 times 20 is 100, but this will actually make the ghost effect faster. It's not that visible, but if you've been staring at this for as long as I have, then you notice the difference. So yeah, I used that faster fade for Carl when I will get to him soon. Then I want to quickly talk about this screen, which is the New Day screen. So this plays every time the sprite receives a new day. And like everything else, it also hides when the green flag is clicked. So this has the same thing as the loading screen with the ghost effect, but instead of 0, it's set to 100 at first because I want it to be fully transparent. Then it will go to front layer and repeat this block 10 times, which actually says -10. So this is 10 times -10 is -100. So if you do this, then it will set the ghost effect to 0 because it will be 100 minus 100. Then it will wait 2 seconds and then it will repeat this block which doesn't have the minus, so this is a positive number. And then also hide for good measure. And actually before I talk about the cutscene, I want to talk a little bit about the money bird. We're just going to start the game so that we can see his animation fully. There he is, also on the loading screen. Wait, there he is! And we can click him and we'll receive money. Oh, and I got fired. I just wanted to show him to you, but actually the money bird is kind of broken because he doesn't show up on some days for some reason. Like you can hear the chirp and everything, but then he just doesn't show up. I don't really know why that is. I figured that it probably has something to do with the amount of show and hide blocks that I see here. For some reason, I feel that they're not very good for actually hiding stuff on screen that needs to appear over and over again. So I will probably change how this works, so ignore all this. But I will show you what you saw there, which was that when you clicked him, the money showed up. So the way that this works is when this sprite is clicked. So when the money bird is clicked, it will start sound coins, which is the ding sound, and then it will change marks by random from 100 to 200. So this, you can get anything from 100 to 200 marks. Like I was talking about earlier, this is the faster ghost effect change. And I will show you the basic idea of what I did here. But don't look at the specifics because it doesn't work yet. So here, when the money bird receives the new day broadcast, it will wait 1 second, then set the money bird flight to random from 1 to 3. And this will come in handy here. But for now, we will talk about this. So when there's a new day, it will wait 1 second and set money bird time, and it will set money bird time to 1 to 5. So this works the same way as the meal time. So if it's 1, then it will come after 8 seconds. If it's 2, it will come after 15 seconds. If it's 3, after 23 seconds. And I just put random numbers here. And if the number is 5, then it actually doesn't show up. So it has a 4 out of 5 possibility to show up. And when it does show up, it will also set Moneybird is here to true and broadcast Moneybird. So when Moneybird receives Moneybird, if Moneybird is here is true, then it will go to front layer, and this is where we get this. So there are 3 different Moneybird flight variables. If you get the first one, it will fly on this side of the screen. If you get 2, then it will fly in the middle of the screen, and if you get 3, it will fly on this side of the screen. But yeah, like I said, it's still a little bit broken. But what isn't broken is the Moneybird animation, which is actually what makes him flap his wings. So I made it so that the animation isn't playing all the time. It only plays when this command chain here broadcasts Moneybird animation. So basically only when he's actually on screen it plays. And the way I did this is by doing this repeat 10 command, so that this sequence here repeats 10 times. So it will switch to first frame, wait 0.1 seconds, then switch to the next one, and so on. And there are 6 frames. Here they are. And these will be playing really quickly when the game is actually going. So it looks like he's actually flapping his wings. Next, I could talk a little bit about the cutscene, but honestly, I have no idea what I was doing here. It's not very efficient, and yeah, this is not very good. It doesn't need to be like this, so I definitely need to clean up this code at some point. There is an item that you can click in a part of the cutscene, which is this letter. You can open it like this. But this is also pretty bad. And also, if you play the cutscene and you don't open the letter, then the game will be unplayable. So if you do the cutscene, open the letter or else. Open the letter or else the game breaks. And I have no idea how to fix that. But that doesn't happen if you only press start game, and it doesn't happen if you just open the letter in the cutscene. So here, when you get this screen where the letter is clickable and it says open the letter, then you need to just open the letter and you can proceed normally and the game will play just fine. Only if you open the letter though. Oh, and I guess there are still the shop buttons left. So these on the top here are the shop buttons for the sanitarium, and these ones are for the station. I actually don't want to explain the shop because there is a good tutorial by Zinnea on how to make a shop in Scratch, and that's what inspired the way that I coded this. So I will just put that link in the description, as well as all the other tutorials that helped me to get this game done. This game demo has a total of 55 unique assets. I didn't show the process for all of them in this video because I did a poor job at keeping track of what I did each day. Sorry. For the actual game, I do want to go in a bit of a different direction. A different art direction. A more detailed, maybe even lineless style with darker colors and more contrast would better fit what I had imagined. Also, the game is actually supposed to take place in spring, which I forgot, so it looks like summer. I do recommend that you play the game for yourself, but if you can't, then let's go to the final showcase. So now that's all finished, I will take a big nap and then start on my next idea. Please let me know if you'd like to see more videos related to Border Train. I could make a video where I introduce the characters, or maybe even a questions and answers video if any of you have questions. Well, God bless you and good night.